For parents, protecting your children is a top priority, especially if they're in daycare.
The State Department of Social Services just announced a new policy. As of 2 weeks ago, religious daycares that are exempt from being licensed and do not receive subsidies from the state will now be subject to surprise inspections. There are about 800 of them in Virginia.
Jacqueline Lee investigated why these daycares are exempt from licensing in the first place.
Becoming a new mom comes with a certain kind of magic.
I've never felt that kind of love or joy, just overwhelming, fill your soul up to the brim with happiness.
Just 55 days after Betsy Cummings gave birth to her son Dylan, she had to go back to work. She took him to Little Eagles Daycare in Norfolk, but then, just hours later, she gets a phone call.
And the person said, "There's been an incident at the daycare." And then she said, "It's involving your son, he's not breathing."
Dylan was found clammy and blue in his crib. The medical examiner's office concluded he died from SIDS. A judge ruled that the infant's death couldn't be attributed directly to the daycare workers. However, an investigation by the Virginia Department of Social Services revealed staff failed to provide appropriate supervision and placed the health and safety of children at risk. Cummings later found out Little Eagles Daycare, run by Bethel Temple Church of Deliverance, wasn't even licensed.
I was just like, what? I don't understand. They were in a building. I didn't take them to a home daycare.
In Virginia, religiously affiliated daycares don't need a license to operate. It's 100% legal. To find out why the law is like that, you have to go back about 40 years. In 1976, Virginia implemented stricter regulations for all daycares, ranging from programs to health and nutrition. Eddie Aliff, executive director of the Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists, said the church-run facilities felt the wide-sweeping laws started to threaten their religious freedom.
Well, these new regulations that they were bringing in 1976 were also impacting the programs, what they would be teaching.
Eddie Aliff is executive director of the Virginia Assembly of Independent Baptists. He explained in 1976, several pastors got together feeling their religious liberty was at stake. They brought their concerns to the state.
Are you as concerned as I am about the potential for what these regulations could do? And is this a direction that the state's trying to take in order to become more influential in controlling the church?
In 1979, the General Assembly passed legislation that said religiously affiliated daycares no longer had to be licensed in Virginia. Today, the more than 2,500 licensed daycares across the state are inspected at least twice a year, with requirements for background checks, training, and health and safety. The 955 religiously exempt daycares, on the other hand, self-report compliance by submitting documents to the state.
We do not want there to be any hint that the Department of Social Services is in charge over our programs in a way that could impact their religious teachings and those aspects.
If licensing or the Department of Social Services is going to give rules, but then not follow up on those rules to make sure they're being done, I don't really see the point in having a rule to begin with.
According to the Department of Social Services, there's been a total of 28 child daycare deaths statewide from 2004 to 2018. But it doesn't track whether the deaths occurred at licensed or religious exempt facilities. Cummings said it's the lack of oversight at religious facilities that's concerning.
I mean, they're all doing the same thing. Everyone's watching children for money.
Aliff said he has no problem if the state comes and inspects a religious facility if there's a complaint filed. However, he said he's against required inspections. But you feel like lack of oversight when it comes to religious daycares, that's not an issue?
We don't believe it is. Otherwise, we would see an outpouring of reports of religious exempt daycare not following through, and they'd be closing up.
He said it's about preserving the separation of church and state, making sure no one can come in with an agenda. But for parents like Cummings, she said she wished she knew.
My family and I have been sentenced to a life of always wondering. You spend 9 months pregnant wondering, what's he gonna look like, and when's it gonna sound like when he says mom, and all of the cool things that you're about to experience as a parent. First day of school, weddings, and everything in between.
All those special bonding moments between mother and child, gone for good. Jacqueline Lee, 13 News Now.